Hi everyone, I'm Andrew and this is Plainview Farm, my 20-acre farm in the southern Missouri Ozarks where I raise low-line cattle for beef, meat goats, a few hogs, and we keep some chickens for eggs. Oh yeah, and we also have a couple donkeys that watch out for all the other livestock. In this video, I'm going to cover two topics that I consider to be very important to making my farm profitable. Then at the end, I'll go over a few tips that I consider to be useful as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is resource utilization and infrastructure. Now on my farm, being a livestock farm, things are probably going to be a little bit different than they would be on, say, a farm that is producing vegetables or flowers or some other kind of crop. However, I absolutely believe that the underlying principles and the examples that I'm going to use in this video are transferable to just about any other type of operation. Now here on my farm, I have my property divided into paddocks that range from 2.5 to 4 acres. And here behind me, you can see the central alleyway that runs right through the center of what is the southern end of my property. Again, it's only 20 acres and roughly, I guess about 14 acres of that 20 is on the south side of the property. There's another 4 acres on the north side, and then about 2 acres is a yard and ponds and other space that really can't be utilized as pasture. But as I was saying, I have this central alleyway that runs through the center of the property here on the southern side, and it allows me to run my animals from any one single paddock into another. They also have access to water, whether it's at the far end of the property where there's a pond or up here closer to our house where we have a well and we have a hydrant and we can run fresh water for them if need be. But as I was saying, just by opening a couple of gates, we can run the animals from any single paddock out here into any other. So if one paddock is maybe performing well one year and another one is having a little bit more difficult time recovering from grazing, then we can change up our rotation system. I also have the flexibility within each paddock to subdivide it further with reels of polywire. And I believe that one word that I used just then is key to whatever you're doing in resource management, which is flexibility. I firmly believe as a farmer or even in any kind of business that one of the worst things you can do to yourself is paint yourself into a corner to the point that you don't have options if things don't go the way that you've planned. And let's face it, the reality is that in farming, average is unusual and the unexpected is normal. We have to be able to adapt and to change whenever circumstances around us change. For instance, this year, the spring has been unusually wet, which means that there are certain areas that I've had to keep the cows out of in order to keep them from doing damage to the pastures. Most other years, those paddocks would probably be doing the best because they stay moist longer than the others, and I would probably be hitting them more often with the cattle, with the grazing, compared to this year. Now, I'll also throw in a bad example in terms of this unusually wet spring. One of the things that I've failed to do this year is to make sure that I've kept the pigs moving as I should. I've gotten further and further behind on my plans because I haven't been able to get seed in the ground when I wanted to, and the rain kept falling and things just haven't seemed to come together. And so sometimes what happens is you find yourself in a hole and you dig deeper and deeper until the situation gets worse. Well, finally a few days ago, I had to just throw all my plans out the window and move my pigs to a whole other spot on the farm. That way they could get off of that muddy patch of ground they were in and they could get back on some fresh grass. So now the adjustment that I'm making is a little bit late, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to plant some pasture for the pigs, a cover crop for the fall. So now back to the grazing system for the cattle. I'm a firm believer that whenever you talk about infrastructure, it should be not only efficient, but it should be cost effective or low cost. You can even throw out cheap if you want. For me, it's important to be able to install fences quickly, to take them down quickly if I need to make repairs quickly if I need to. All of those things are very important to me. Again, it comes down to efficiency and cost. I want to be able to do what I need to do for the least cost while still remaining effective. So the fences that you see here behind me, they are all 2-strand high tensile electric. They're 14 gauge. My gates are just 2 strands of wire as well, 14 gauge with electric gate handles. My line posts for my fences are fiberglass rods with a T-post every 3rd post. And the T-post helps provide stability because whenever the animals try to slip through, or if something runs through one of these wires, one of these fences, it's possible that they can knock the wire off the fiberglass rod. Now I will say this, again, talking about flexibility, whenever I first installed this fence, I didn't have the T-posts in here. It was all fiberglass rods, but I noticed that it probably wasn't as strong as I wanted it to be. So I had to adjust and go back and put these T-posts in, which honestly, I think there's only about 22 T-posts out here total in these cross fences. And since I've made the changes to the fence, I've not had the wires come off of any of the clips. Now as well, all of my corner posts are old utility posts that I've reclaimed and have cut down to make corner posts out of. And you'll notice that none of my corner posts have brace posts on them. The wire is not under enough tension or heavy enough in order to cause those posts to lean at all. When it's all said and done, I only spent about $2,000 on the cross fencing for this 15 or so acres on the south side of my property. Now, if you're interested in exactly how I built this fence and what all went into it, I do have some videos on that, which I will link in the description below. So again, one of the major benefits of running my farm in this way, where I prioritize efficiency, low cost, and flexibility, is that I'm able to improve the quality of my farm, of my pastures overall. By having this grazing system, I am able to selectively graze. I am able to target certain plants and improve stands of grass that I wouldn't be able to improve if I just turned the cows all out here and let them go. I'm able to much more efficiently utilize every square inch of pasture that I have available. Even the alleyway here serves as its own paddock. There are times of the year that I will close the cattle out of every paddock and just leave them in the alleyway so they can graze it down as well. Again, this whole system is designed to make the most of what I have. Now, another key aspect relating to infrastructure is equipment. On my farm, I use old, in some cases worn out equipment, instead of buying things that are new and very expensive. For instance, I have right here a 1948 Farmall M tractor with a front end loader on it. Now, of course, it helps if you're able to work on these things because old equipment is likely going to need repairs from time to time, and I enjoy doing those kinds of things. Now, if you're not the kind of person that has those abilities already, or maybe you don't enjoy doing those kinds of things, I would encourage you to, at the very least, learn to try to gain some of those skills. Now, there definitely are times that it makes more sense to hire things out, but you don't want that to be the norm. You need to learn how to troubleshoot and how to run down any problems that you have and make those repairs on your own, because at the end of the day, hiring people out, hiring jobs done really cuts into your bottom line. Now, part of this is being able to differentiate between wants and needs. There are a lot of things that I would really like to have, but at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot that I need. I do, as I said before, enjoy messing around with old tractors, but I probably don't need a whole fleet of tractors in order to be able to do the things that I want to do. However, I will admit, there's multiple tractors on this property. It's only 20 acres. I could honestly get by with just one. Don't tell my wife I said that. Now, a great resource for older tools and equipment is, in my experience, estate auctions. While of course sometimes you can go to these estate auctions and people end up paying far more than they would for something new, you can often find pretty good deals at estate auctions, especially whenever it comes to gardening tools. Occasionally at some of these estate auctions, especially at older farms, you can find some really good quality older hand tools, gardening tools that far exceed what you'll find in a store today. Now, what I would consider to be probably the most important aspect of my farm whenever it comes to profitability would be diversification or stacking of enterprises on my farm. I generally like to take an every little bit helps kind of view of farming. And what I mean by that is, while it's good to have a central enterprise or two that drives the revenue for your farm, it's a very good idea to try to add as many other little complementary enterprises, especially as many as maybe you can handle, that can help add to the bottom line. And what I mean by that is, again, I have my cattle, I have my pigs, I have my goats, I have my chickens, I even have, again, the pair of donkeys that I use to guard the goats and the cattle and all the animals that I have here. Everything that I have here on this farm is productive in some form or fashion. Even beyond the donkeys guarding all of the animals, every couple years I'll have a foal that I can then sell to somebody else who's looking for a guard donkey. And even though I probably have more money invested into the cattle than anything else, they haven't been very productive yet. Probably the central, what I would consider to be my central enterprise on the farm right now, is my hogs. Even though I only have a single breeding pair of hogs, my feeder pigs and finish hogs are the primary driver of revenue on the farm. So as I was saying, I sell feeder pigs, I sell butcher hogs, and I also sell individual cuts of meat at the local farmers market. It's not only important to have as many enterprises as you can handle on your farm, it's also important to try to diversify the revenue streams within those enterprises. Our farm is like ogres and onions. We have layers. And having layers or stacking is so important because it builds in a little bit of security. If one area comes up short, maybe for the year, then another area can help pick up the slack. It's really just like the old adage, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Now, I mentioned in my previous video, which was actually part 1 to this video, and I would encourage you to go watch it after you watch this one. But as I mentioned, you can put cattle, sheep, and goats all on the same plot of land, and they won't compete with one another for the same food source so long as they're not overstocked. And by doing that, you're able to maximize the profit out of every single acre on that piece of property. And in the case of a small scale farm, you cannot overstate the importance of that. It's so important to have multiple revenue streams within multiple enterprises. And as I was saying before, these principles don't just apply to livestock farming. It can be the same case if you're growing vegetables, if you're growing flowers, if you're raising fruit trees, whatever it may be. If you have a patch of land that isn't being used for something, try to find a source, try to find something that can occupy that land and create another revenue stream for you. Again, the whole idea is to use your imagination to maximize the potential of the space that you have. And honestly, it is amazing how creative you can be whenever you're forced to think in smaller terms, whenever you're limited to a small amount of space or a small amount of land. Often, the less you have, the more efficient you are, the more you make of it. And you'll probably notice in all the things that I've talked about, I'm selling directly to consumers. And that's the major difference in my profitability. Now, the only thing that I've mentioned that I don't sell direct to consumer is my goats. I do sell breeding stock from my goat herd from time to time, but primarily I'm utilizing the local sale barn. However, just because it's not a direct-to-consumer market doesn't mean that I won't take advantage of it. Again, you have to be open-minded, you have to be willing to pursue every avenue that you have available, because at the end of the day, you are running a business, you are trying to make a profit. But if I were to dig in my heels and say that no, I'm not going to participate in that kind of market, then I would lose the advantage that I gain by having the goats on the property. And honestly, even participating in that type of a market, the goats are probably the second most profitable enterprise on the farm next to the chickens. Finally, here's some practical tips for small scale farm success. Number 1, start small and expand as you learn. Sometimes we make the mistake of trying to jump in with both feet up above our head and we end up drowning ourselves. We don't want to do that. You want to start small, you want to take it piece by piece and learn as you go, and then grow as you learn. Taking that view of it will put you in a much stronger position as you go forward. Number 2, keep very detailed records of what goes on your farm, whether it's the birth of animals, the seasons, weather conditions, the changes to your land, changes to the landscape, things that you've done, improvements you've made, infrastructure you've built, and of course, sales. All of these things are very important to keep track of, and it's very beneficial, maybe more so than you realize whenever you're first getting started, to be able to look back and to say what did work and what didn't work, because ultimately it helps you to make much better decisions as you move forward. Next, you should also try to join local farming groups and markets because they're a great source for advice and support. While there are going to be folks out there that don't want to share any trade secrets with you, I've discovered that many more will be willing to help you out. Honestly, I think most folks take the same view that I have, which is that there's no specific pie that we all have to try to get our piece. You know, the pie is constantly growing. There's enough room for all of us, and we just kind of have to find our niche, find our place, figure out where we fit in. And folks with that type of attitude, they're going to be more than willing to help you out. And the last tip is never get so smart that you stop learning. The reality is there are things that you may absolutely be 100% certain that you know about today that tomorrow you suddenly decide you don't know anything about at all. This goes back to that lack of flexibility, painting yourself into a corner type of attitude that I was talking about before. Whenever you think that you have it all figured out, then you've completely eliminated all flexibility. And whenever you completely eliminate all flexibility, then you've basically doomed yourself to failure. There is always room for personal growth. So again, I definitely encourage you to watch part 1 if you haven't already to this video. And please check out the companion blog at our website, plainview.farm, and I will include a link to that in the description below as well. So as always, I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time. Bob White,